look at new things, and we were to enforce justice, but not interfere with the various civilizations that we would come across. That was the premise.
You were made the character of Captain James T. Kirk in Institution. How would you characterize Captain Kirk?
Captain Kirk is a lover of life. He's a man who seeks adventure. He's a man with a singleness of purpose. He's a man with humor, a man with curiosity. If I were to characterize Captain Kirk in any one way, I would say he was curious. His desire to look at the world around it, look at the worlds around him, to seek that information, to perceive what was that took place out there, what monster is that, what form of life is that, is really what he would probably say. He's a passionate man, and that finds his outlet, his passion on the ship. Presumably when he finds the right ladies, then nature takes its course. That, by the way, in 2300 hasn't changed. In many other roles that I've performed, I would carefully select things that I wanted to do, or allow instinct to take over and just play a scene or a character. But mostly it's planned, it's selection. As an artist might select the medium, if he's a painter, what colors he's going to use, so an actor should select what's going to happen to the character he's playing, or the director, and or both. But what happens in television is you may get the pages that you're to perform that very morning, and you don't have time to select. Not only that, after a number of weeks of performing on a series, you become fatigued, deadened with fatigue, so that you can't lie, you can't disseminate anymore, you can only be what you are. So I think what happened on the series was that when I got the script, I just performed it the way I thought. Well, I performed it in the way that I would hope that I, Shatner, would react in a given situation. If I could be brave, if I could be courageous, if I could stand my ground and not run, I would prefer to think of myself in that way. If I could make love to that girl and not be too apprehensive about being rejected. All the wonderful positive things that one wishes one could do, I tried to play Captain Kirk that way. So it became a great deal of me or my wish fulfillment.
I'd like to start off by talking about those ears so we get them out of the way. Is it true that when the TV series first started, that one of the executives at the TV company said to the producer, "Get rid of that guy with the funny ears"?
Network executives are concerned with audience identification with characters in a television show. You have a teenage boy or girl in a show so that the teenage audience can have someone with whom to identify. You have a middle-aged man for the same reason, a middle-aged lady for the same reason, whatever, you know. You have a dog so that all the dogs can identify. You don't have to have somebody for everybody to identify with. The concern was that there wouldn't be enough people with pointed ears to bother with, so why have a man with pointed ears?
Do you like the Trekkies? Do you understand why the Trekkies are there?
Probably because the study of Star Trek is more interesting than the study of the daily news.
People talk about the philosophy of Star Trek. Do you take it seriously?
Oh, I try not to take too much seriously. I try to... that can be dangerous. I try not to take myself seriously. I try to do decent, honest work. You know, when I'm being paid to do a job, I try to be a professional about it. And I try to bring to bear whatever I have to offer, whether it's talent or intelligence or whatever, research, energy, imagination to the work. But I'm an actor. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a historian. I'm not even a scientist. I'm just an actor. What I do, a lot of people have done it better. Some have done it worse. But if you stop and think that that Lassie can do it, you know, and Shirley Temple could do it when she was that big, you know, how important can it be? You know what I mean?
Do you ever find it difficult to reconcile that side of you, which, for want of a better word, intellectual, artistic, with the science fiction field of Star Trek?
Yeah. There's all kinds of science fiction, just like there's all kinds of people. Some people are terribly sensitive and some are insensitive. Some are friendly and some are not. science fiction is a form of literature in which a lot of people work, some creatively and some not. Some write boring science fiction and some write brilliant and exciting science fiction. Some write science fiction that has to do with nuts and bolts and machinery, and others write science fiction that has to do with feeling creatures, thinking creatures. I think science fiction it can be a very exciting theatrical form. It can also be a bore. Depends on who's doing it and how well it's done. Then there are differences in taste. There are some people who love the nuts and bolts stuff that want shows about ships and rocketry and gadgets and so forth. And there are some who want stories about feeling, thinking people. So it's a matter of taste. And some of the material is excellent and some is not.
The character of Dr. McCoy, an institution. You are affectionately called Doc Bones by your fellow crew members. How would you characterize Dr. McCoy?
I don't know. I think that when Gene Roddenberry laid out the character in the beginning, he was very close to him. He characterized him more or less as a future day H.L. Mencken. And it rather sums it up. As a matter of fact, I went to the library and read what I could about him. And he is the least militaristic of all of the officers. And he seems to be the one character aboard ship that wants to hang on to our human values. He hates to see all of the computerization coming. He resents Spock's superintelligence and his affection for that sort of thing. And he's kind of trying to keep everything in its place, trying to slow down this progress to a certain amount, in a certain way. And I've more or less ridden along with it in those terms, trying to remain somewhat a human being in a very unreal situation.
I also see a lovely sense of humor. When Spock gets very stoic and then Captain Kirk gets very serious, you're standing there between them with a little twinkle in your eye.
Yes, there seems to be, a lot of people have referred to us as the Trinity. But he's the catalyst with them, more or less. And I think that he comes into play under these, the severe circumstances that come about during these episodes. And he finds a place for purposeful, kind of biting, sardonic kind of wit. And it kind of breaks that tension, so to speak.
How did you feel when you stepped onto the Enterprise after 10 years of absence?
It was somewhat like a recurring dream, that I'd had in the back of my mind for a long time. Because we had talked about doing Star Trek for so long in another form, some way. We didn't know whether it would be coming back on television or a motion picture, but it was all talk. It was talk over the years. We knew and felt that it should come back. And so it was like something that we talked about, and in the back of your mind, you rather visualized it happening. But it never happened. And then all of a sudden, it fell into place very quickly. Not really very quickly, but when things do begin to work, they fall in rather rapidly, it seems like. So when I walked on the set and looked around, it was it wasn't a family reunion feeling, but it was like there's that dream that kept recurring. And isn't it weird? It was almost like stepping back in time, like we'd done a show, that we were all together again. Or something like having died and seeing all these people in heaven again, that kind of a thing.
Were you a little bit apprehensive of maybe you were going to get disappointed?
Yes. As I said earlier, it's like we've all thought of that statement. And when we did get back together, the first day, of course, was terribly strange for all of us, as I explained, this stepping back into time. But it didn't seem to take too long before something amusing had happened that it broke down again, and we began to laugh, and the feeling was there.
Why do you think Star Trek has become a phenomenon?
I think it has stimulated the imagination of the youth. It manages to say something in a time when it's difficult to say things. It is the adventure for tomorrow. Where else is there to go? That's it. That's where it is, up there. I think it is the camaraderie, people caring about people, man unashamedly loving man, and trying to find out how and what and how something really works, to understand to understand it first. If we could learn to understand why something does this, many times it turns out not to be your enemy, but in turn will be your friend. I just think there's so many things encompassed in the body of Star Trek that touches a chord almost in every generation, it seems like. There are a lot of bright young people out there, and they're on to what's right, and Star Trek is right.
Has this been one of the most important adventures in your life?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Sometimes I forget exactly how big a thing it is. When I signed on to Star Trek, I had no idea, in many ways, what I was getting involved with. And the first few days I was doing it, a couple of people in the cast would say things like, this is going to change your life. Everything's going to change from here on in. And I kept thinking, well, I've heard people say that in regard to films before. What I didn't really understand was this enormous network of Star Trek fans who are all over the world, who are the most remarkable people. They're wonderful fans, and they really, in many ways, are responsible for the film being made.
I feel very proud, very happy, very nervous, and to be part of Star Trek, I think it's a cult. It's so much a phenomena.
We wanted to find a way to bring Kirk and the crew all back to the Enterprise. And we found it in setting our story 3 years after the 5-year mission had ended, the mission that was shown on television. Kirk has been promoted, the crew has scattered, but an emergency happens far out in space where the only vessel in position to do anything about it is the USS Enterprise, which is currently in orbital dry dock, having been refitted. To crew the vessel, they get Kirk and his old people back together again and send them out. So we have the fun of seeing the reunion. We have the captain's love affair with his vessel, finally reunited with her. And it is almost sexual, the relationship of a man and a vessel like that. And we go out and intercept and meet this menace that we really am not describing too much because we want to save it as a secret as a surprise in the film. But it is an action adventure thing as well as an intellectual challenge.